Okay, so you know how we always use a pen or pencil or,
Yeah.
even type all the time? Well, have you ever thought about, like, where all that started?
It's funny, right? We do it every day. But like the actual origin story of writing, fascinating stuff.
I mean, think about it. The earliest writing was pictures, like literally drawings on cave walls. Talk about old school.
40,000 years ago, those cave paintings, they were the first attempts to communicate, like visually, and to keep track of information, right?
Totally. I mean, and we're talking about a time long before, paper and pencils as we know them.
Yeah.
It makes you appreciate how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, for sure. And you, dear listener, who's probably scribbling notes or even just signing your name regularly, it's a trip to think how it all began.
That's actually what we're diving deep into today, the whole evolution of handwriting. And we've got some really cool sources to pull from, everything from like guides for young writers to Britannica Kids, even Wikipedia and a bunch of handwriting websites.
We're going all in. This deep dive is going to explore, well, the long history of handwriting, obviously, but also all the different styles we use and the surprising benefits of, having good handwriting.
Right. And not just the history and the styles, but we're also going to give you some actionable tips, like actually help you improve your own handwriting.
Exactly. We want to give you the most interesting and useful stuff about handwriting, straight from the experts. You ready?
Absolutely. So starting at the very beginning, cave drawings. Those were, what, the first baby steps toward actual writing.
You could say that. I mean, those paintings, they were all about expression. But as societies got more complex with like trade and stuff, they needed a way to keep records. Drawings just weren't cutting it for, say, inventory lists.
Makes sense. And so this need to like keep track of things more efficiently, that's what pushed people to come up with actual writing systems.
Right on. So around 5,000 years ago, boom, we get the first writing systems. And it's fascinating because they popped up in different parts of the world independently.
Like Sumerian cuneiform in Mesopotamia, right? Imagine writing with wedge-shaped marks on clay tablets. So different from what we do now.
Right. Totally different feel. And then you've got the Egyptians with their hieroglyphics. Those picture-like symbols. They represented words and even sounds. Pretty advanced for their time.
It's incredible that these complex systems just kind of appeared in different places at the same time.
It's mind-blowing, really. At first, their symbols were very literal, like a drawing of a cow literally meant, well, cow. But then it got more abstract. Symbols started representing ideas like, love or mourning.
That's a huge leap, moving from just physical things to actual concepts.
Yeah, it shows how human thinking was evolving. But then things really changed with the alphabet. Talk about a game changer.
Yeah, the alphabet. That's around 3,000 years ago, right? What made that so revolutionary?
Before the alphabet, you needed a different symbol for every word or idea. Can you imagine? The alphabet changed everything because it used symbols to represent the sounds we make when we speak.
So like instead of a symbol for cat, you had symbols for the C, A, and T sounds, and you could combine them to make any word.
Exactly. And that's what the Phoenicians did. They came up with an alphabet with 22 consonants. The Greeks built on that, adding vowels, making it even more flexible.
And from the Greek alphabet, we got the Roman alphabet. And that's basically what we still use today in English and many other languages.
It's the foundation. And as these writing systems were developing, so is the way people wrote.
Right. Early handwriting, it wasn't exactly like super neat and uniform like we might see today, right?
Nope, not at all. For a long time, most people couldn't even read or write. So scribes, the guys who could, were really important.
They were like the keepers of knowledge, right? Because
Okay.
they were the only ones who could write things down and like keep records.
Totally. Like in ancient Rome, they had a fancy formal script for official stuff, but everyday writing, it was way more casual. And you know what's interesting? That everyday writing started to look like our lowercase letters, and some letters were even connected.
Like the beginnings of cursive.
Mm.
So cool. And I know handwriting kept changing in Europe over the centuries. What happened next?
Well, in the medieval times, parchment was expensive, so they changed how they wrote to save space.
Ah, so they started writing smaller and more compactly to fit more on a page.
Exactly. They went from roundest letters to pointy, angular ones, just to save precious parchment.
That's amazing. They really had to get creative. And then, fast forward a few centuries, bam, we have the printing press. That must have had a massive impact on handwriting, right?
Huge. Suddenly, books weren't just for the elite anymore. Printing made them way cheaper and faster to produce.
The more people could read, and they were all looking at the same printed letters. Did that make handwriting more standardized?
Definitely. The printed word became like a blueprint. And then Schools started teaching specific styles.
Right, like when we were kids, we all had those handwriting workbooks.
Mm.
And even today, handwriting keeps evolving, right? Even with all the digital stuff.
Absolutely. New technologies, new ways of using our hands, it all influences how we write.
Okay, so we've gone through this awesome history of writing. Now let's talk about how we actually write today. Like print versus cursive. Can you break those down?
Sure. Print script, also called manuscript, is what we usually learn first. Each letter is separate, like building blocks. Think of the letters you're reading right now. That's print.
So it's all about clarity, right? Each letter standing on its own. Where do we usually see print script used?
It's the go-to for forms, signs, labels, anything where readability is key. And it's easier for beginners to learn.
Makes sense. You want things to be clear and easy to understand, especially for kids just starting out. Now, what about cursive? It's like the fancy flowy style.
Exactly. Cursive connects the letters within a word. It's smooth and continuous. We call it joined-up writing or sometimes just script.
And I remember there being different types of cursive. Like I had to learn a specific one in school.
Oh yeah, there are a bunch of styles. Danielian, Zahner-Bloser, Spencerian. Some are really elegant with lots of loops.
They're all beautiful in their own way. It's interesting how handwriting can be so different across the world, just like languages.
It's true. And even within the same alphabet, people form letters differently depending on where they learned. And then, you've got completely different writing systems like Chinese or Arabic.
Yeah, their writing looks like art. It just shows how handwriting is more than just, putting letters on paper. It's part of
Yes,
our culture.
totally. Okay, so real quick, let's compare print and cursive.
Sounds good. What are the main things that set them apart?
All right, so in print, each letter is separate. In cursive, they're linked. Print is usually slower to write. Cursive can be faster once you get the hang of it. For beginners, print is easier to read, but cursive can be tough to decipher sometimes. And lastly, print looks kind of choppy. Cursive is all smooth and flowing.
Great summary. Now, this might sound a little crazy, but our sources actually say neat handwriting is a superpower. In the digital age, why should people even care?
Well, first off, think about it. If your handwriting is clear, people can actually read what you wrote. You're communicating your thoughts clearly, like speaking clearly.
Makes sense. If your writing is messy, people might not even get your message, no matter how brilliant it is.
Exactly. And here's another cool thing. Good handwriting actually helps you learn better.
Really? How does that work?
When you write by hand, you're not just passively taking notes. You're using your hand and your brain together. It's like a workout for your brain, and it helps you remember information better.
So taking notes by hand can be more effective than typing them on a laptop.
That's what the research says. There's something about the physical act of writing that makes information stick.
Fascinating. And I imagine handwriting is also about personal expression, right?
Oui.
Like everyone's handwriting is unique.
Absolutely. Your handwriting is like your fingerprint. It's yours and yours alone. The way you form letters, the pressure you use, even how you slant your writing, it all comes together to make your handwriting unique. And when it's neat, it shows you care.
Like putting your personal stamp on things. And I can see that being important for handwritten notes or cards.
It adds a personal touch that typing just can't replicate. But beyond those personal benefits, good handwriting has real-world perks too.
Like what?
Well, for one, in school, it's crucial. Teachers need to be able to read your tests and assignments. It's the same in lots of jobs, like being a doctor or a scientist, where accurate records are super important.
It's not just about looking good. It's about making sure information is clear and accurate. Okay, so, convinced yet? Good handwriting is a good thing. Now, how do we actually improve our handwriting? What are some tips people can use?
First things first, posture. Sit up straight, feet flat on the floor, paper right in front of you. You can tilt it a bit if that's more comfortable.
Posture is so important for everything, isn't it?
It makes a big difference. Next, your grip. Hold the pencil gently between your thumb, index, and middle fingers. Don't squeeze it too hard. You'll get tired and your writing will be stiff.
So, a light but firm grip. Got it. What about how we actually form the letters?
Pay attention to how you start each letter and the direction you move your hand. Handwriting guides can help with that. Try to keep your letters the same size and shape. And if you're working on cursive, focus on those smooth connections between letters. That's what makes it cursive.
It's like a dance, each letter flowing into the next. And speaking of flow, what about the space between words?
Spacing is huge for readability. A good rule of thumb is to leave about a finger's width between each word.
That's an easy tip to remember. Finger width spacing. And I guess, like with anything, practice makes perfect, right?
Totally. Even a few minutes a day can make a big difference. Copy from a book, write out your to-do lists, journal about your day. There are tons of handwriting worksheets online, too.
So many ways to practice. Okay, now, let's get real. Everyone has handwriting struggles. What are some common issues, and how do we fix them?
One that's super common, especially for kids learning to write, is reversing letters, like mixing up B and D or P and Q.
Oh, yeah, I remember those days. How do you help a kid, or even an adult, with that?
One trick is to say the letter out loud as you write it slowly. Really focus on the shape and direction. Looking at examples of the letter can help too. And teachers, of course, are great resources for this.
So see it, say it, write it. Makes sense. Another one is, I think, inconsistent letter sizes. Some letters are huge, some are tiny.
That happens a lot. Line paper is your friend here. It helps you keep the letters the same height. Imagine a little box for lowercase letters to fit in, and the taller letters can poke out a bit.
Like invisible guidelines.
Yeah.
Okay, what about slanted letters? Sometimes they lean way too much or not at all.
Right. Inconsistent slant can make your writing look messy. Keep your paper at the same angle as you write. Start by practicing straight letters, and then add a slight slant once you're comfortable. Consistency is key.
Consistency is so important for neat handwriting. And lastly, let's talk about that spacing between words again. Sometimes it's too close, sometimes it's a mile wide.
Right. Spacing can really make or break readability. That finger width rule is a good one to remember. It helps keep your writing looking even and easy to follow.
Love that rule.
Yeah.
Okay, switching gears a bit. Let's talk about the brain-hand connection. It's more than just our hand moving, right?
Absolutely. Handwriting uses a bunch of different parts of the brain all at once. It's like a full-on brain workout, which can actually make you a better learner.
So we're literally exercising our brains when we write. Amazing. And it helps with memory too, right?
Yep. Studies show that we remember things better when we write them by hand compared to typing. Something about that physical act of writing helps the information really sink in.
Like it's not just in your head, it's also in your hand.
Right. And it helps connect what we see, what we do, and what we hear. All those things come together when we write, and that's what helps us learn to read better, too.
It's all connected. Okay, I love this part. Fun facts time. Tell us some cool stuff about pens, pencils, and the history of writing tools.
All right, did you know that the very first writing tools weren't pens or pencils at all? They were reeds.
Reeds, like from a plant.
Yep. People used them to make marks on soft clay tablets. Can you imagine writing a whole essay that way?
That sounds tough. What about the Egyptians? They were pretty advanced. What did they use?
They used brushes made from reeds, but they wrote on papyrus, which was kind of like early paper.
That's pretty cool. And thinking about those scribes again, it's wild to think that once upon a time, reading and writing was like a secret skill that only a few people knew.
It's true. They held so much power because they could write, and most people couldn't.
We take literacy for granted these days. And what about before pens and pencils? What did people use to write?
Quills. They were made from feathers, and people used them for centuries. Imagine all the famous books and documents that were written with a quill.
It makes you appreciate those old-time writers.
Mm.
And speaking of writers, some people have really recognizable signatures.
Oh, yeah. Some signatures are so unique you instantly know who wrote it. It's another example of how personal handwriting is.
Here's one that surprised me. They found writing on ancient wax tablets.
Those were like reusable writing surfaces. You'd write on the wax with a stylus and then melt the wax to erase it. Talk about eco-friendly.
And I love this one. You know that dot on the lowercase I? It wasn't always there.
Yeah, they added it later to make it clearer and easier to read.
It's like those tiny details that we don't even think about. Okay, I know people might have some questions, especially in today's world, where we do so much on computers and phones. So first up, why should anyone even bother with handwriting anymore?
It's a fair question, but even though we have all this technology, handwriting still has its benefits. It's not just about writing, it's about thinking and learning. And there are still lots of situations where you need to write things down, like signing your name. And honestly, nothing beats a handwritten note for that personal touch.
Good points. And we get this question a lot. Which is better, print or cursive?
Honestly, neither is better. It depends. Print is easier to learn and read for beginners. Cursive can be faster once you're good at it. Lots of people use both.
And what about left-handed people? Is handwriting harder for them?
It doesn't have to be. They might need to position the paper differently to avoid smudging, but there are lots of techniques and resources out there. It's just about finding what works best for you.
And a super practical question. What's the best way to improve handwriting?
The key is to practice regularly and focus on the basics. Good posture, a relaxed grip, and pay attention to how you're forming those letters. Take your time. It's better to be neat than fast, especially when you're practicing.
Solid advice. Last question. Does handwriting have to be absolutely perfect?
No way. It's more important that it's readable. It's totally fine to have your own style. That's what makes your handwriting unique.
I love that. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, we've gone from cave paintings to cursive, explored different writing styles, learned about the awesome benefits of good handwriting, and even got some tips to improve our own handwriting.
And remember, good handwriting takes practice. Keep at it and try out different styles. Find what works for you.
It's amazing to think how far writing has come, from simple drawings to the handwriting we use every day. So think about this. What's next for handwriting? With all the technology we have, will our digital signatures, or even our typing styles, become the new forms of personal expression? It's something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.